On today's episode of Time About the Movies, a stacked show with a ton of different celebrities all across the board, including some of your favorite action stars in The Expendables 2. We have also the latest film from Leica Animation, the same people that gave us Coraline and Paranorman. Whitney Houston in her last big movie before her passing, alongside Jordan Sparks and Sparkle. We also have Jennifer Garner and Joel Edgerton in Disney's The Odd Life of Timothy Green. We have Robert Pattinson starring in David Cronenberg's latest film, Cosmopolis, and Frank Langella and Susan Sarandon starring in Robot and Frank. 6 movies to take a look at today, August 17, 2012. This is Time About the Movies. Let's go.
I need a weapon. Yours.
My big weapon's hanging right where it is.
Rated R. Starts August 17th.
And that trailer right there gives you kind of a sum up of why this is my favorite of the Expendables movies. Welcome to Time About the Movies. Today we are taking a look at the 6 films that make up August 17th, 2012. And of course the big new release is The Expendables 2, which follows once again The Expendables, a mercenary group as they seek revenge against Jean Villain, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, a rival mercenary who murders one of their own and threatens the world with a deadly weapon. Cast includes Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Norris, Randy Couture, Terry Crews, Liam Hemsworth. Right off the bat, this movie easily outpaces everything that was done in the original film, but that doesn't really propel it to like 5-star excellence by any means necessary. But then again, that's part of the fun of these movies, is that you don't really expect 5-star quality with a movie like this. You just want to see some of your favorite action stars from the 80s and 90s coming together to beat the shit out of each other, and that's exactly what you get with these movies. And like I said, this one is definitely the best of the bunch. I mean, this is the one where it came together so well. Once again, Sylvester Stallone and the crew work very well together. A lot of the comic humor that's thrown in there is really good. One of the big surprises of the movie was Liam Hemsworth, who really felt unnecessary at first just because, you know, he got a few lines in the Hunger Games and then he had these quieter moments. Wasn't he worthy enough of being in The Expendables 2? And it turns it was when somebody like Chris Hemsworth probably would have made more sense, but he does work in here pretty well. He's got a lot of charisma. He is very good in the film. He actually does play a part in this movie. It isn't just a throwaway character, like somebody who's supposed to be the hot shit because he was just in the Hunger Games. Like, he actually plays a part in this movie. The action sequences overall are incredibly well done. The first scene of the movie where the team crashes this plane into the caves is so well done. And how can you go wrong with the last major action sequence featuring all these action stars? You see Schwarzenegger, you see Stallone, you see Willis, you see Statham, Lee, Van Damme. They're all together beating the shit out of the bad guy in this, and it just works. It's almost as fun as watching the Avengers finale. That's how good of an ending that is. It actually kind of sums up, kind of is a perfect, bookend to the summer in general. We had this great climax in the Avengers, and then it wraps up with this great climax in Expendables 2. So, yeah, a perfect bookmarking for the summer in general. It's also paced very well too. It doesn't feel long at all, and it doesn't go 2 hours long. It really doesn't feel like a movie that feels like it's wasting your time in here with this film in general. Like I said, the biggest problem with the film is the story, which is pretty much what you expect from a film like this. It's not expected to be groundbreaking storytelling overall. Like, it's just kind of there to have these people come in here, and if you can give me something entertaining to take my mind off of it, you make something good overall. So I'm willing to let it pass. I thought Van Damme's villainous role was I liked it better than the villain in the last movie, Eric Roberts, but even then, he still went a little too over the edge in terms of his over-the-top performance in this. His plan didn't really make a whole lot of sense in general. It seemed like he was taken down way too easily. But then again, that's part of the fun of these movies. You turn your brain off, you have a good time with it, and if you can stand to see it, you can stand to enjoy it, you can have a lot of good time with it. And that's what I feel about this movie. It's a fun film that works best if you turn your brain off and just go in expecting a good, fun, over-the-top summer escapade. And that's exactly what you get in here. Just accept the fact you're in there for a brainless action spectacular, and you get what you get here. It's a very good film, a very fun film overall. Story gets pushed off the window, but hey, it's worth it in the end just to see these great action stars of the past coming together and beating the crap out of each other. What more could you ask for with The Expendables 2? So, now if you're looking for a good fun movie with a good storyline, and a lot more than that, let's take a look at our next movie, and that is Paranorman.
Zombie flares.
Paranorman, from the makers of Coraline, in theaters this summer.
So this is, of course, Leica Animation's follow-up to their successful Coraline from 3 years ago, and it really did establish themselves as the big stop-motion animation feature company out there, because we really didn't have a big stop-motion animated company out there for the longest time. And Tim Burton worked on The Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, and Corpse Bride, which Corpse Bride I think was kind of the start of that stop-motion company as a whole. But here's the second film to show what Leica Animation can really do, and they really take a lot of chances with their movies. And Coraline was the first good step in the right direction. Here's what happens when they get a second film to do whatever they want. In the town of Blythe Hollow, Norman Babcock is a boy who can speak to the dead, but no one besides his eccentric new friend Neil believes his abilities are real. One day, Norman's estranged, eccentric uncle tells him of an important annual ritual he must take up to protect the town from a curse cast by a witch, a condemned creature, centuries ago. Eventually, Norman decides to cooperate, but things don't go according to plan. Now, a magic storm of the witch threatens Blythe Hollow as the acute cursed dead rise. Together with unexpected new companions, Norman struggles to save his town, only to discover the horrific truth of the curse. With that insight, Norman must resolve the crisis for good as only he can. And really, like I said before, stop-motion films are very hard to A, put together, and B, criticized, because you see the effort on the big screen. These take a long time to work on, so it's very rare for them to screw them up unless it's something in the story area, which, sometimes it does that. Corpse Bride is kind of one of those examples where it's a good movie, but the story overall, not really complex overall. Even Nightmare Before Christmas is one of those great ones, with great movies, but the villain's kind of an unnecessary villain overall, but Corpse Bride actually is a part of stop-motion history because it was actually the first stop-motion film to use the technology that Leica had been using. In fact, I think Corpse Bride is actually sort of a Leica production overall. I don't know if it's officially theirs or not, but with what they did with Corpse Bride, they essentially created a system where the stop-motion characters can move without the filmmakers having to move them all around. And I didn't find that out until well long after that movie came out. So Corpse Bride is part of a piece of history overall, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have movies like Coraline or Paranorman. This is a really damn good movie, man. This is a movie that is very creative, very unique. The animation overall is really good, and you really do like all these characters. They're all very well acted. You got great characters played by Anna Kendrick, who plays Norman's sister, Leslie Mann and Jeff Garland, who plays his parents, Casey Affleck, who plays like the teen boy hero, who would usually be the hero in these type of films, but there actually is a fun little twist that they do with him, which I really thought was pretty fun. I'll get to that in just a second, but unlike Coraline, where you manage to have all these surprisingly effectively scary moments, there's not really a whole lot of those moments in here. There's creepy moments here and there, but it really wasn't all that scary. But to me, that's really it really doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the film overall. What makes this film so unique is that it doesn't play around with the regular conceptions of a family-friendly movie. There's a lot of points where it really does feel like a PG-13 horror movie. There's swearing in here. There's some pretty intense violence for a kid's film. There's sexual innuendo that's above what we're used to seeing in these films. Like the Casey Affleck character I mentioned. Like, Anna Kendrick, wants to be his girlfriend. That's he's, like I said, he's usually the hunky teenage hero in these movies that usually saves the day, but not in this film, because as it turns out at the end of the film, he's actually gay, which, I thought that was a bold and interesting move on their part, and I thought they did a pretty good job of making it work, because it was actually, watching it again, it was actually one of the funnier things I saw when I watched it again recently. If there's any real complaints about the movie overall, my big complaint about it is that they don't really explain why Norman sees all the ghosts. They never explain why it happens. It leads me to believe that if you're a horror movie nut, you can soon conjure up powers to talk to the dead. It's interesting overall, but it's just kind of like, really? Like, we're really going down with that explanation? Like, I wish we could have gotten an explanation as to why that is, but, another thing I really didn't like is that some of the characters were very mishandled. Like, Norman's mother really looks like Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but maybe that's the point. Maybe that was the point overall. It looked kind of bad at the time, but watching it again, I could see where they were going with it. What I really like about the movie is the big twist ending that they do here. It's not the type of twist you think of here. Like, they do explain, what this witch is and what exactly happened in this town, and it essentially came down to a big misunderstanding, and the way it's handled, the way they present it, that to me is what gives Leica that unique edge that we don't usually see with a lot of other movies. Because in any other movie, it'd just be a normal villain goes down type of storyline, like a Corpse Bride or Nightmare Before Christmas. But with Paranorman, there's there's a hook this time around, and it works very effectively, and it really makes this movie really stand out more than I initially thought it was when I first saw this film. I mean, this is a really, really good movie, and it does show that Leica Animation was for real, and they will be putting out some more really good movies as the decade goes on. And we haven't heard from them since the start of the decade, honestly. The last thing we saw from them was Missing Link. That may have been their weakest film overall, but it was still a good movie. But at the same time, you do wonder what's taking them so long with their next film. I don't know if it's just a studio thing or it's just because of COVID. I mean, I don't know. I'm wondering why it's taking them so long to get a new film off the ground. But Paranorman is a really good movie, no question about it. It's Halloween right now, so if you have not seen Paranorman, seek out Paranorman if you haven't, because it's definitely, more than definitely worth a watch. So we got the good stuff out of the way. Now let's get to some of the garbage this weekend. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Sparkle.
Sparkle, rated PG-13. In theaters Friday.
Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
Fuck yeah! Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle! Ah!
Oh, how I wish this movie had that same kind of energy to it, but sadly, another one of those big letdowns. I was really looking forward to this movie overall, just because of the casting alone, but, yeah, unfortunately, it didn't quite live up to the hype I really wanted it to live up to. So it's set in the 1960s, where you have three sisters forming a girl group. One of them is played by Jordan Sparks, the other is played by Carmen Ejogo and Tika Sumpter, and, you know, they become Motown sensations against their mother's wishes, their mother being played by Whitney Houston. But fame both becomes a challenge and an obstacle as the close-knit family begins to fall apart due to this. But one girl, Sparkle, played by Sparks, senses some hope for the future despite every circumstance. And as I mentioned, Jordan Sparks, Tika Sumpter, Carmen Ejogo are the three ladies in here, this girl group. But you also have Whitney Houston as the mother, Derek Luke, Mike Epps, CeeLo Green, Tamela Mann, and Omari Hardwick. And it features songs from Curtis Mayfield, who wrote the songs for the original movie this is based off of, as well as new songs by R. Kelly, and also the debut acting performance of Jordan Sparks. And it really would have fallen off my radar had it not been for Jordan Sparks, and especially for Whitney Houston, especially considering that Whitney Houston passed away earlier in the year, and, you know, is arguably the greatest female musical artist out there. The voice on her alone, like, every time you listen to a song, you just get compelled to listen to it. And yeah, she had her problems behind the scenes, but it doesn't take away from the greatness of that person, of Whitney Houston in general. You know, Michael Jackson had a lot of problems too, but we still love what Michael Jackson does, regardless of what anybody's trying to do with these Leaving Neverland garbage out there. But I digress. Like, you know, this movie really came to another level once Whitney Houston passed away, and to her credit, she is one of the best things about the movie. You know, Jordan Sparks is also really good in here too, and, you know, she actually is very terrific in her leading debut. She's got a lot of good acting potential overall, and, you know, these two work together very well in these scenes. They're pitch perfect, and you can see why they're so good in here. The biggest surprise of the movie to me was Curtis Armstrong, who you know is Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, Snot on American Dad, and of course Dan on Dan Versus, and I thought he was really good in the small parts he was in. A role that's completely outside of what you're used to seeing him. He's kind of like the role he played in Ray, ironically also the same thing, the head of a record company, much like he is in this movie. Carmen Ejogo and Tika Sumpter, I thought, were very good. I thought they were really delivering some of the best performances in the movie, acting-wise and singing-wise. The songs are really good. The direction by Celine McKean, who also did one of my favorite films from last year, Jumping the Broom, was very good. So it sounds like it's a good movie. Then you get to some of the problems with it. The bad things kind of begin with Mike Epps, who I really do like, but in this movie, he was not that good. He's supposed to be like the funny comedian in the movie, but none of the jokes he had in here were that good. I mean, I could buy him as a sleazebag almost usually, but, I mean, it really doesn't work in this movie. Like, I mean, he plays it so well when he plays Ice Cube's brother in the Friday movies, or his nephew. It's not his brother, is it? His cousin Day Day. That's who it was. I knew it was one or the other. Yeah, I digress. But yeah, he makes it work in the Friday movies, but in this, not so much. Which leads into another problem with the movie. There's too many points where they mention race into it. I mean, CeeLo Green's literally playing a character called Black. Some of the dialogue feels way too very stereotypical for black people. Like, you know, some of the dialogue even goes to levels like, white people do this, black people do this. And I don't know if it's the fault of, you know, Marbach Aki, who also did The Game and mostly does television work, or more to the story writers, Joel Schumacher or Howard Roseman. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was just that, or maybe I'm the one that's crazy here because obviously I'm not black. But I digress. But lastly, the biggest problem with the film is that it's called Sparkle, but Sparkle isn't the main movie focus of the film until the last 30 minutes. Most of the film is spent on Sister as she goes through her ups and downs. Once she's sent away in the last 30 minutes, the film then turns over to Sparkle to become a successful songwriter, and it's just kind of like, the movie is called Sparkle, and we're just getting to her main storyline in the final 30 minutes. It's just kind of like, it's like what happened with the Lorax earlier this year. Like, the Lorax story gets pushed off to the side so that we can tell the story of Zac Efron and Taylor Swift, falling in love. And it's just kind of like, come on, man. Like, we're not here to see that story. We're here to see Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. And here, we're here to see Sparkle. Like, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen the original film, so I don't really know if that's what actually happens in that movie, but it really does feel like the title of the movie doesn't get even mentioned until half hour left in the film. Like, I mean, I make it seem like this is a bad movie. It's not that bad. The music is good, the acting overall is good, the direction's not that bad. There are a lot of good things about it. I just wish there was a little bit more to it that I really would have loved to see. But unfortunately, it just wasn't there with this film. It's a mixed opinion on me. I like it, but I've never had the will to go back and watch it again, unfortunately. So, mixed opinion on Sparkle. So, take that for what you will. I certainly enjoy it more than our next movie, which, oh boy. This one is an ungodly mess of a film. Let's talk about The Odd Life of Timothy Green.
The Odd Life of Timothy Green, rated PG.
Where do I even begin with this? Because on paper, it looks like just your typical Disney family fantasy adventure film. Well, it starts off like that, but then when you have a trailer like that with wannabe Hal Douglas doing this whimsical narration, and, you see the trailers and you make it seem like it's going to be the story where, these parents are heavily flawed with themselves, and nope. What you'll see in this movie as we talk about it here is so dry, is such melodramatic bullshit. I mean, the story about this is that you have these two parents receiving bad news from a fertility doctor, Jim and Cindy Green, played by Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Gardner, who try to bury their dreams of having a child by writing out all the great traits their child would have and putting them in a box in the garden. During a freak storm in the middle of the night, they awake to find a boy named Timothy, played by C.J. Adams, with leaves growing on his ankles, standing in their kitchen calling them Mom and Dad. Cindy and Jim are thrown into the midst of parenthood, and over the coming months, Timothy will teach them that there's more that they can handle about being parents and raising a child, no matter how he comes into their lives. Which, on paper, like I said, does not sound like a bad idea for a storyline here. It's a film that does sound like a really good concept overall. What that plot synopsis isn't telling you is that Jennifer Garner and Joel Edgerton are two of the worst people that you will ever meet in your entire life, because their whole idea is that they're going into this adoption area with this woman played by Elizabeth Pena, they're trying to convince her to allow them to adopt a kid. And when you watch them throughout this movie, you see that these two should not be anywhere near a child by any means necessary, because these are terrible parents. These are parents that don't give a shit about anything except just to it's basically what I feel about kids nowadays. When I ever see parents with kids, it's like when I see them in the stores and the kids are crying out loud and the parents don't give a shit, it really is just like, you didn't want a kid because you want a kid. You want a kid because you want to have an accessory to show off to people. Like, hey, take a look at my kid here. Isn't he wonderful? Or she, or whatever he is. Like, like, those type of parents I hate. This movie has those type of parents, except they're taken to 11 because they never learn their lesson. They never learn about being a real parent. They never once think about their own actions overall. Like, there's literally a part of the movie where, Joel Edgerton tells the social worker that, I told him to fight his own battles. And then there's literally a scene earlier in the movie where he's literally saying, if you see somebody, just run the other way. They never learn a lesson in this. Nobody ever learns anything in this. And it doesn't help that everybody else in this town is so fucking stupid and so self-centered. Like, Ron Livingston plays a stock jackass in this movie. Everybody else plays these whimsical characters. Like, this movie is trying so goddamn hard to get an emotion out of you, and it's doing it in the worst possible way ever. This makes Lifetime movies look butch by comparison. This is dry, sappy, uninventive bullshit on so many levels, which it makes it even worse when at the end of the thing, these two clearly have shown that they're not ready to become parents whatsoever. And yet, by the end of the movie, Elizabeth Pena basically says, I've seen it. You give me, you may not be great parents, but you gave me one hell of a good story. So here, take this kid. Why not? They got what they wanted in the end. It's just like, no. None of what they did is deserving of them having a kid here. This is absolutely one of the most disgusting movies I have ever seen in my life. It is sappy for its own good. It's sappy on its own worst possible matters. It takes really good talent across the board. It gives them a terrible script to work with. It's a lousy movie, man. And this is a good director that directed this. Peter Hedges, who did Dan in Real Life. He did Pieces of April. But man, what a gigantic misfire this pile of garbage was. Avoid the odd life of Timothy Green like the plague. Please, I'm begging you with every fiber of my being. And so we got through some really disappointing film at first, and then dry, sappy, uninvented bullshit with Timothy Green. Now here's pretentious garbage from David Cronenberg. This is Cosmopolis.
The logical extension of business is murder.
So rich and cursed. I smell sex all over you.
The moment that line, "I smell sex all over you," comes out, you know exactly what kind of a movie this is. This is pretentious garbage, and sadly, this is what David Cronenberg would be doing for the rest of his goddamn career. On the spur of the moment, 28-year-old Manhattan self-made multi-billionaire Eric Packer, played by Robert Pattinson, decides he wants to get a haircut from his regular and longtime barber Kraustown. A difficult journey today, if only because of the traffic gridlock from three high-profile but vastly different events taking place in the borough, including a wandering anarchist protest, they who largely use dead rats as the symbol of their protest. Through his trek, Eric, most taking place in a stretch limo, meets with several business associates, some as well as with as esoteric job titles as head of theory and personal acquaintances, including his several-week bride Elise, a wealthy woman in her own right, with whom he still has a somewhat distant relationship, if only because they don't really know each other. The start of Eric's day ends much differently than the end, as his personal fortune largely hinges on external forces in relationship to a speculative currency transaction, and as he learns someone is trying to kill him, who and for what reason, he does not know. We don't know either, because the movie won't tell us, because, like I said, it's steaming pretentious garbage from David Cronenberg. And, David Cronenberg's made a lot of great movies in the past, but my God, this was the beginning of the downfall for him, because this is literally what he'd be doing for the rest of his career, taking these really great actors, Robert Pattinson, Paul Giamatti, Samantha Morton, Juliette Binoche, Jay Baruchel, and Kevin Durant, and giving them the most egotistically pretentious piece of garbage you will ever see in your entire life. This movie is so goddamn stupid, and so have its head so far up its own ass. Like, even pretentious people would look at this and go like, settle down here, buddy. I mean, I like more sophisticated movies, but even then, this is like you're insulting my intelligence here. That's what they'd be saying with this movie. Like, this is a god-awful movie, man, and we've seen clearly that Robert Pattinson is much better than these films let on, like these really bad films let on to be. He has proven in the last couple of years he's a good actor, but this, I mean, really, to be honest, it's not his fault the movie is bad. It's the script overall. This is a lousy film. It's got its head way too far up its own ass. It's an ugly movie. It's an ugly film. It's a boring film. What more can you say, man? Cosmopolis, just garbage. So yeah, we had a couple really bad movies there, so let's see if we can turn the tide with our last film that we have here, Frank Langella in Robot and Frank.
Frank, my memory can be used against you.
Don't you touch that robot, Frank!
Well, somebody really took that subplot from Rocky IV about Paulie having a robot and made a movie off of it, and made a pretty good movie out of it. But then again, this is Jake Shire, the same man that just recently gave us Thunderbolts, so take that for what you will. In the near future, Frank, played by Frank Langella, is a retired cat burglar living alone with his successful son, while his successful son Hunter tries to care for him from afar. Finally, Hunter gets himself a robot caretaker, played by a robot that I believe was the Hyundai Osimo robot, if I'm not mistaken, but Frank soon learns that it is useful as a burglary aid. As Frank tries to restart his old profession, the uncomfortable realities of a changing world and his worsening dementia threatens to take beyond what any reboot can do for him. Yeah, it's a bizarre concept overall. It's a comedy, but it's also a drama too. But it kind of works, and that's kind of the interesting thing about Jake Schreier. This is the same guy that gave us Beef, and also did Paper Towns too, so he has a very bizarre mind to him, and it's proven to be very successful in his career, and this is the film that really was the first thing that showed everybody what he can do, and he makes it work big time here. Frank Langella is giving another great performance, and here you got James Marsden, Peter Sarsgaard, Liv Tyler, Susan Sarandon, so there is a lot of really good talent on board with this film. It's a movie that's very funny. It's also very heartbreaking, too. It's a nice mixture of comedy and drama with a little bit of sci-fi thrown in there. And yeah, it literally does feel like somebody saw the plot of Rocky 4 and said, I want to make a movie about Paulie and his robot friend. We can't use the Rocky characters? Okay, well, let's just get an Oscar-nominated actor as of recent. Frank Langella, let's see if we can get him to come on board to this. And lo and behold, you got a really good movie out of it. A really bizarre film, but a really good film regardless. Robot and Frank is actually something I highly recommend checking out, especially if you like absurdist over-the-top movies that will make you laugh but also tug at your heartstrings too. Robot and Frank does that pretty convincingly well. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, not a very good weekend. We are kind of at the end of the summer movie season, so that means that the studios are putting out the films they don't really believe in, including our first film, Premium Rush, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which actually turns out to be the best film of the entire weekend, honestly. We also have Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell amongst an all-star cast in the comedy Hit and Run, and Warner Brothers' latest attempt to try to create a new horror success with The Apparition, which does not work very well. So we'll take a look at those three films as we start kind of into the dumping weeks between the summer movie season and the fall Oscar season. So that'll be coming up next time on the show, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the last episode we did. With all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.